Welcome to the Westport Library. Today's program will begin momentarily. Supported by Verso Studios, created locally and shared with the world.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jim Marpe, a member of the Wiseman of Westport Weston Board of Directors, and your host this evening. On behalf of Wiseman President Mike Boyle and the entire Board of Directors, I want to welcome all of you to this special evening session of the Wiseman, produced in partnership with the Westport Library. And a special thanks to the library's Executive Director, Bill Harmer, and his outstanding staff, people who just told me to get on stage, for their first-rate assistance in making this evening happen. Founded almost 50 years ago, the Wiseman of Westport and Weston is a group of nearly 700 retired and semi-retired men who live or worked in these towns, the largest group of its kind in Fairfield County. Members are from a very diverse background of professional and careers. Our primary objective our primary objective is to slow the aging process. Yeah, you laugh there. Wait till we get to the funny lines. But seriously, to slow that aging process, improve these retirement years, and mainly through social interaction, physical activity, and intellectual stimulation. We sponsor nearly 50 activities, including hiking, sports of all kinds, discussion groups, photography, community service and social events, and a variety of unique trips throughout the tri-state area. We meet every Thursday morning from September through May with speakers that include public officials, historians, authors, financial experts, filmmakers, legal and medical professionals. Our speaker topics are wide-ranging from major historic events to events in the Middle East, to the history of the Grateful Dead. But most importantly, before every meeting, we serve great coffee, donuts from Coffee Ann, and bagels from Village Bagels. So what's not to like about that? Seriously, if you're a retired, semi-retired male, and you don't know about the Wiseman, or you know somebody who fits that category, feel free to talk about it to any one of the Wisemen around here, and we'd love to have you belong to our organization. But tonight's dedicated to getting to know a little bit more about our Westport neighbor and a great friend to many of us, Craig Melvin, the co-host of NBC's Today's Show. You know, Westport and Weston are extraordinary communities for many reasons, not the least of which is the number of well-known celebrities, actors, musicians, and senior business executives, bold-faced names, as the New York Post would say, who make their home, or one of their homes, here in this town. And some are here on the weekends or just during the summer. And most elect to maintain a low or no profile in the community and in the daily activities of our communities. And as a community, the thing about it is we respect that desire for privacy. But we're fortunate that some of our famous residents are actually out and about on a regular basis. Exhibit A for this is, particularly for some of us who lived here during the 80s and 90s, is it was not uncommon to be standing in line at Campo Flowers before Mother's Day with Paul Newman, or to see Paul having lunch with Robert Redford in a local Mexican restaurant, or to be invited to have tea with his wife, Joanne Woodward, that is at their home in support of some worthy cause. And I want to recognize a member and a family that helped arrange this tonight. Our Wiseman member, Eiley Rhymes, who through his efforts, Craig agreed to appear here tonight. And he has a daughter you may have heard of, Chandra Rhymes. These are the Rhymes family, and I want to include Eiley's wife, Vera, in this as well, have become really a part of the community themselves and are active in ways to go above and beyond just the normal paying your taxes and please leave me alone. So thank you very much, Eiley, for what you made to have this happen. He's right down here. Thank you. So our guests this evening, Craig Melvin and his equally well-known wife, Lindsay Czarniak, have created a whole new script, in my opinion, for celebrity community participation in Westport. We see them with their children in church, as part of the school activities, or just having a family dinner in one of our family-friendly restaurants around town. Or you might catch Craig coaching his son's rec basketball team, or having lunch with the Westport 10, and we'll hear more about that a little bit later. Craig is the classic guy you want to have a beer with. And if you haven't read his memoir, Pops, I have the book over there. You can borrow it from the library as soon as I turn it back in. But you're missing a great coming-of-age story that resonates no matter what circumstances you grew up in. So, while many of us already know something about Craig Melvin and his background, just in case, and before Craig comes on stage, let's take a couple of minutes to watch a brief video that celebrates his first day as the co-host of NBC's Today Show.
From the moment he walks through those studio doors each morning, Craig Melvin doesn't just light up the anchor desk, he brightens every corner of our studio. Over the past 10 years, he's let that natural warmth shine into something extraordinary, turning every interview into a memorable moment.
Happy Father's Day.
There you go.
Cheers. Cheers, my friend.
And breaking news into conversations that touch hearts.
Breaking these barriers is important for me. You got me choking up now.
That genuine connection with people isn't something Craig learned in a broadcasting class. It's deeply rooted in his South Carolina upbringing, where he first cut his teeth in local news.
There's only so much we can squeeze in this morning.
Long before he joined us at Today, local viewers in Columbia, South Carolina and Washington, D.C. saw what we all see now.
Glad to have you with us. I'm Craig Melvin.
It was in those D.C. newsroom halls where he met fellow reporter Lindsay Czarniak, a moment that would shape not just his career, but his entire life. It's his role as husband to Lindsay and father to Delano and Sybil that brings out his brightest smile.
I also wrote it because I wanted you to know
that you're proud of me.
Yeah.
But sharing your life with viewers can also mean sharing life's deepest heartaches together. When Craig's beloved brother Lawrence passed away from colon cancer in 2020, Craig refocused his grief into purpose, now leading a vital conversation about colon cancer awareness, particularly in communities of color.
This is the only fight I'm focused on.
Yes, I got you.
That ability to move us from laughter to tears and back again is pure Craig. From presidential perspectives to courtside conversations, Craig's curiosity unlocks candid moments that captivate us all.
Your questions are almost better than mine. Hurricane Florence has roared ashore.
When disaster strikes,
This is what it means to us to be a part of a community.
from the devastation of Hurricane Helene to the flames engulfing Notre Dame, Craig has been there, helping us make sense of the history as it unfolds.
As you can see now, it's all gleaming.
In the darkest days of the pandemic, Craig stood outside a New York City hospital, giving voice to the exhausted healthcare heroes, and championed a high school in Pittsburgh to make sure their students didn't get left behind. In a world of big headlines and breaking news, Craig finds the quiet heroes, the high school principal who worked the night shift at Walmart to buy his students supplies.
$50,000.
The summer camp counselors for children with incarcerated parents.
How do you cope?
It's hard. Kids are still kids. They still need their dad in their life.
From fishing boats to frightening heights. From Parisian pastries to precariously perched furniture. Craig's adventures remind us that life's best stories often come with a side of laughter. And now, as he takes his seat at this desk officially, we couldn't be more grateful. Because Craig doesn't just tell the stories that matter, he helps us understand them and sometimes even change them for the better. And that is is exactly the kind of Today Show anchor and friend we all need in our morning.
Please join me in welcoming our neighbor, Craig Melvin.
I know you're showing that video. Jeez. Wow.
I'm going to sit over here.
Oh, apologies for the video. I didn't realize you were going to play that.
Well, I see right off the bat here, there we go. We're fine. Thank you for being here.
Before we get started, let me just, I just
You want to do the interview?
No. But really quickly, I did want to acknowledge Lee, even though you acknowledged Lee Rhymes, who's here, who he didn't really give me a choice in terms of being here. But Lee, thank you so much. And the Wiseman, I didn't realize the Wiseman Mafia, you guys are, it's like a couple hundred between Westport and Weston. So a big thanks to all the Wisemen who invited me, and to your lovely wife, who I've been instructed not to acknowledge under any circumstances. So I will not. But Miss Ferrari is here. Yes. Miss Ferrari, it's good to see you again. And thank you so much for watching every morning. So thank you.
Well, that just about wraps it up. By the way, your friend Dave Briggs sitting right down there.
Dave Briggs is here.
Dave suggested we should have a bottle of bourbon.
Well, you don't want, that's not the interview you guys want tonight.
Yeah.
I need
but
my
the library's rules forbid that.
But also, Jim Marpe, before we move on, and folks who've lived here, we've been here for 15 years. And when we moved here, I forget who the mayor was, but you told me he died, so. But after him, Jim Marpe was the selectman here for 8 years. And I voted for him. I didn't know anything about his politics, but we go to the same church and we play the same mediocre golf together sometimes. And I covered town hall many years ago on local news. And I remember the mayor at the time in Columbia, South Carolina, said to me that the object was very simple. You want to leave a town better when you leave than when you started, and you did that. So a big thanks.
Thank you.
And unlike a lot of politicians, Jim also knew when it was time to go. So thank you for your service.
The people who didn't applaud might disagree with you. Anyway. Well, yeah, you've fed right into my first question. But,
oh, boy.
Besides me, what are the reasons that you and Lindsay chose to move to Westport?
Oh, that's a good question.
2012.
It was a total accident, for being honest. We met in D.C. We met during a commercial break. She'd come back from the Olympics in 2008. She was in Beijing. I was coming up from Columbia, South Carolina. I was doing the weekend evening news. And while she was at the Olympics in China, they had some guy filling in. And Dave will know this, but sometimes in local news during a commercial break, you're just kind of, you're shooting the breeze. I was about to use profanity, and then I caught myself because there may be children here. And you're shooting the breeze, talking about what you're gonna do after the show, whatever. And so the guy who'd been filling in, I turned to him and we're like, hey, what are you doing after the show? Let's go grab a beer, blah, 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 blah. And we're going on and on. And the director's in my ear, and the director's like, all right, Craig, 30 seconds, blah, 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 blah. 10 seconds, Craig, blah, 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 blah. And then at 5 seconds, I decide to turn because you want to ask the sports anchor what they're starting with so you can seem smart when you toss to them.
Yeah, got it.
So I'd say, Jim, let's talk about that UConn loss. I know it's too soon. And so I turned to the guy who'd been filling in, and it wasn't him. It was this woman who was very attractive. And I turned, and I still maintain that the director's count was off. And so when I turn, I'm like, hey, and we come back on the air. And so when I turn, I'm like, hey, welcome back from China. And she says, she's like, welcome to Channel 4. And she was like, who are you, new guy? And so she pulled the video for our rehearsal dinner at our wedding. And it was the first time I'd seen it. And I was like, oh my God, she still went out with me, even though I was a complete doofus of a jackass. But that's how we met. And then she got a job at Sports Center and ESPN. And at the same time, I took a job at MSNBC doing a cable show, and I was going to be a correspondent for the network. And so we had to find a place to live. And so we'd gotten engaged in March. We were getting married in October, and we had to start our jobs in August or September. So we came up one weekend. I'll never forget it. We drove up. We didn't know anybody in Connecticut. I'd never been to Connecticut. And we drive up, and we looked at a map, and we needed to find a place that was equidistant between Bristol and New York City. So we went to Norwalk, Stamford, Fairfield, Westport, and I forget, there was some other terrible town that we went to. But we came to Westport. Westport was actually the last town we came to. Got off exit 17. I was driving my black Ford Expedition that was nicknamed Bertha. And we got off, and we went to this little restaurant, the Mansion Clam House, down Saugatuck River there, and we sat there. And we had, at that point, that day, looked at about 11 places. And take no offense, we sat there at that bar and we were like, oh my God, everyone's in finance. and everyone's white. It seemed so homogenous. And then there were some other folks at the bar, and we started talking to them, and they're like, oh my God, Westport's so great. And we're like, man, I don't know. The Italian food was great. And so, long story short, we rented a place over off Imperial on Otter Trail. And come on, all right. We got some Otter,
right,
yes!
Otter Trail there.
Otter Trail. Long story short, we kind of fell in love with the place. And then after we'd been here for about a year, we got pregnant. I said we got pregnant like it was some, we decided to have a family. And we would come to the library long before it was like this. And it just, like, over the last 15 years, our kids have grown up here. We've become a part of the community. And it's just, it's a magical place. And it's one of the, we laugh about it now, but when we came here the first time, it wasn't so magical because we didn't have kids.
Yeah.
But the schools and just, everything about the town now, we've grown to love, even the taxes. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah. Now, oh, it was fine when I left.
Oh! Well played. Well played.
Well, to that point, and thank you for your involvement in the town. How do you and Lindsay, first of all, you're very busy people, how do you choose what to get involved in town when you have your spare time to do that?
It's usually dictated by the kids. So our kids' interests have become our interests. My son, flag football. We're out there every Saturday during the flag football season. I've coached his rec basketball team for the last 5 seasons. This was the first year that we won the rec championship.
Hey,
no, you can clap. I wanted you to clap before I told you how we won it. We had a set of twins on the team whose parents were D1 athletes at Wake Forest who were responsible for 3/4 of the offense. And my daughter's in gymnastics and dance. She's over at the Y and Dance Collective and another place here in town. But so a lot of it's dictated by that. And then we've also just, and you've been a part of our charity event that we do every year over at Shore Haven. The causes that are near and dear to us are causes that have become near and dear because of, terrible things that have happened in our lives. Yeah. And so we spend a lot of time doing stuff with colorectal cancer. Lindsay's father's a 3-time cancer survivor. We do a lot of stuff with leukemia and lymphoma. But it's also one of those things where you spend enough time in town you befriend people. I see Bill Mitchell right there. You know, Bill Mitchell. You spend 10 minutes talking to Bill. He sucks you in about 3 different things. You know, you go in, you buy a tie, and it's like next thing you know, you're at Sacred Heart doing a. But it's one of those things where when you develop genuine friendships with people, you find yourself spending a lot of time with those friends. Does that make sense? You know, it's I don't know. I will say, Jim, as a kid who grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, mom was a school teacher, dad was a mail clerk, third shift. Dad didn't go to college. Mom was the first in the family to go to college, went to grad school after that. This is not the life that I imagine. There's nothing about this life that I live that I imagine. But the older I get, the more I enjoy that. The more I enjoy the fact that this is not how I would have scripted it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no. Our stories aren't so different in the sense of growing up in modest circumstances, having never heard of Westport, Connecticut. Actually, I probably did because of the Dick Van Dyke Show, if anybody, or whatever that was.
I remember it from I Love Lucy.
I Love Lucy, yeah. But the, you know, you're right. And I think that's the story with a whole lot of people sitting out in this audience that
I was affirmed shortly after I started at the show. I was in hair and makeup, not to sound whatever, but more makeup than hair. And I'm sitting in hair and makeup, and there's a woman sitting next to me who's getting a pedicure at 6:30 in the morning, which sounds weird unless you know Martha Stewart. And
many of us do, as it turns out.
And Martha, you know, she's like, well, where do you live? I was like, oh, we moved to Westport. Oh, my God. What? And she's going on and on. She's like, you've got to go here. You've got to go here. And Turkey Hill and blah, blah, blah. And then in the moment, I mean, I'd been there for a couple of months, but I called Lindsay. I was like, Martha Stewart loves Westport. That was all my wife needed to hear. That was it. That's when we probably became sold on Westport. That was before kids.
So what do you, when you talk about Westport to other people, what do you, I can imagine you've told them some of this. What else do you tell them about Westport?
Well, it depends on who asks. No, I tell them it's a great place. It's a great place to raise a family. It's a fantastic place to raise a family. And they're fantastic restaurants. There's Main Street downtown now it's also like it's a great place to live. And anytime someone from my family comes, they say the same thing, like, oh my God, it's idyllic. And sometimes I'm like, maybe it's a little too idyllic in some ways, but I'm like, it's a great place to live. And you know, yeah, that's kind of it.
Okay.
Now listen, I'll be honest with you. My parents, they don't come up in the winter. Because we're from South Carolina. And every time they come up, and this is 15 years now, every time they come up in the winter, it's 5 days of them complaining about the weather. And I'm like, we've been here for a while. Like, they didn't even come up this winter at all. Thank God.
Probably a good decision, yes. I mentioned in the introduction Westport 10, and I know you're involved in that. That's an interesting part of Westport as well. Could you talk a little bit about that?
I don't know if Jay's even here. Jay runs Westport 10, but one of the things that was striking when we moved to town was the lack of diversity. And I'm not just talking, Jim, it wasn't that bad. But there was a lack of diversity that was fairly apparent pretty quickly. And a few years ago, listen, I'll tell this funny story. This is a safe space. So James Blake, famous tennis player. You guys know James.
He lived
grew up
here,
in Fairfield. So James was a famous tennis player, and we'd moved here, and I forget how we came to know each other, but James invited me to a barbecue at his house back in the day. This is probably a decade ago. And I get to James's house, and James has another black guy there. And then another black guy shows up at James's house. And I said to James Blake, I was like, this is the largest concentration of black people in Westport I've experienced since I've been here. And James was like, I know. He was like, that's why I invited you. And so fast forward a few years later, a couple guys in town, they were like, we should have lunch, and we should just. And so they started this group, and I think I saw Harold Bailey over there somewhere. There's Harold Bailey, one of the OGs, and his son, and so Harold's son and my son, they're of similar ages, and his daughter rather. They become good friends, and so we get together once a month, and we just kind of sit around and eat and drink beer and talk about our kids, and it's actually been it's been really good, and not just in terms of networking, but I also think it's really good, Jim. People, whether you're a black guy, whether you're Jewish, whether you're a white guy, whether you're young, whether you're old, elder, you want to be surrounded by people who either look like you or have a similar background, and I mean it's human nature. And so that was one of the things that we didn't have that in the first few years that we lived here, and over the last 7 or 8 we've gotten that, and it's been. And by the way, it's an organization that's also done a fair amount of good in the community too, as you know, because you've been once or twice.
Yeah, but well, tell us about some of that good you're doing.
Westport, you mean Westport 10 specifically?
Westport 10, which is like Westport 70 now or something like that.
Well, it depends on the week. But we've done the organization itself, and I want to make sure I'm clear. I'm not a spokesman for the organization. I don't represent the organization, but there have been some community service projects. They've done also a really good job of young people who grew up in town, who might look like me or look like my kids. They do a good job of, they've done a good job of introducing them to each other as well. So,
oh, great.
And also, every new business, I don't want to say every new business, but a lot of the new businesses that have opened up in town, whether it's that golf place on Post Road, the new sushi gin, the new hotel, we're typically one of the first groups that goes in and spends some time there, and we promote it on social media as well. So we also use the organization to promote the town.
That's great. Thank you so much for doing that. So let's talk about your day job, which is like very early in the day job. I think it's amazing that I'm talking to a co-host of the Today Show, and in thinking about it and doing a little research, I realized, other than Meet the Press, I think the Today Show is the longest running news show, and certainly the longest running show of its type. A morning, hey, get up, here's the news, and here's some other things. And you're part of a long lineage of people, to name some of you'll remember, Dave Garroway,
sure.
Hugh Downs,
Tom Brokaw, Brian Gumble.
Yeah. 15 years he sat in that seat. Savannah Guthrie, almost 15 years already. Is there like a wall of pictures of these folks out of side 1A, and you look at those every morning?
You know what's funny? There is.
Yeah.
So when you walk in downstairs,
there's one by the First Selectman's office. Same thing. Anyway.
Well, but what's awkward there is because they've got the bullseyes on something.
Yeah.
Kidding.
Or the auto pen. Sorry.
Jim, you're really
think about that joke, folks.
No, it's funny, Jim. Again, it's a safe space. It's a safe space. So when you walk in downstairs, they actually do have the hosts of the show. Well, the hosts who left on good terms. The signatures and pictures. It's like the Wall of Fame down there. And I remember the first time I walked in, I looked at it, I was like, oh, shit, like this is all crap. I was so close, and I think my pastor may be here too. I apologize. And you're like, wow, there's a lot of history here. I mean, we'll celebrate 75 years in just a few months. Early next year, we'll celebrate 75 years. And so it wasn't lost on me day one that I was walking into something that was very special. And by the way, it's still not lost on me. I'll never forget a few years ago, I had a boss at the time. He's not there anymore. But Bonnie Hammer, she'll remember Jim Bell.
Yeah.
Jim Bell said to me once, he's like, he's like, you know, I knew it was probably time for me to do something else when Chris Martin, who's the lead singer of Coldplay, Chris Martin was gonna do this little private concert for the staff. And I was like, I don't feel like going out there being bothered with that. And he was like, when that starts to happen, it's probably time to do something else. That hasn't happened for me yet. I just, and I'm not to name drop or whatever, but it's one of the few jobs left in television where I can go from, and I'm trying to remember just the last few days. Dakota Fanning's sister, Elle Fanning, she's got a new series out that's on Apple Plus. We had her this morning. We had a guy named Reggae Jean Page yesterday with Halle Bailey. They've got a new movie coming out on Peacock. Tomorrow it's John C. Reilly. We had yesterday, oh gosh, actor Keanu Reeves. And then, you know, in a couple of days, it's like, you know, Marco Rubio's coming on to talk. And it's one of the few jobs where you can go from interviewing an Oscar winner to a musician to a member of the president's cabinet, and that's what I get to do for work.
Yeah, yeah.
And now, that's great. The problem is there's no room for error. And, you know, when you make a mistake, large or small, you're reminded of the mistake because of these god-awful things. And I do a decent job of staying off this thing. But every now and then, because I've got cousins and I've got a brother who likes to troll me constantly, younger, of course, and other friends. And so every now and then I'll get a text message or something will pop up on our thread of something, a question that I've asked or something that I've said. And a few weeks ago, and listen, I stand by the question.
Yeah.
We had Anya, oh shucks, I'm not gonna remember her last name.
Anya Taylor-Joy.
Look at you, Jim Marpe. Who knew?
Well, I took my grandson to see the Super Mario picture over the weekend.
So she's on the show, and
another story.
Well done, Jim. All right, so Anya Taylor-Joy, famous actress, she's on the show, and I had just seen Super Mario Brothers 2, and my kids still maintain that's the best part of the job. You get the screeners so you can watch the movies and shows ahead of time. So we're watching the movie, and I'd interviewed her before. We had a good rapport, and I can't remember if it was the producer's idea. And I'm lying right now, because I can tell you it was my idea. Because I wanted to throw the producer under the bus. And she was like, no, that was you. And so I wanted to ask her about this connection between Princess Peach, the voice, that she's the voice of Princess Peach in Super Mario Brothers 2.
Yeah.
And she's gonna like portray Joni Mitchell in this biopic. For me, it was obvious. Like you've got strong women who, you know, Princess Peach, arguably the biggest female character in the history of video games. I know it sounds weird right now, but it's true. And then it's Joni Mitchell. So I was trying to draw this through line. And so I asked her this question about the connection between the two characters. And she was like, huh, that's an interesting question. And she answered the question. Anyway, the internet did what the internet does, and it spent the better part of 3 days roasting me over the question. And again, I didn't know it until all of a sudden people start sending me these memes and these articles, and I read a couple, and I was like, well, maybe it was a stupid question. But I still stand by the question. But I did call the producer, and the producer, God bless her, she was like, well, that was your question. That's I say that to say, it took me a while to realize that the stakes are high, especially in the current climate. And there are some mornings where it's really, really stressful. It's really stressful for a variety of reasons, but the show, it comes first. And what you never want to, and it's an inside joke for us, you don't want to embarrass the family. And so we go out of our way to make sure that we're never the story, that it's whoever's being interviewed, like that's the story. And so when we become like part of the story, that's not a good day.
That sounded like maybe this morning that happened?
No, Anya Taylor-Joy was 2 weeks ago. I didn't get in trouble this morning. I don't think. I'm trying to think. No, did I get in trouble?
Something about Jenna.
Oh my God, I forgot.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Oh, geez. By the way, you just got a little glimpse into, so it's also one of those things where, like when the show's over, whether it's good, whether it's bad, you forget.
Yeah.
You forget. And I want to be very clear about
some of you sent me a link to...
Oh, this is nice.
Yeah, right.
These are my friends?
You might want to ask Craig about this.
These are my friends who are sending you embarrassing moments?
But you might set this up.
Okay. Jackasses. So here's something else that happens a lot. I do live TV for 3 hours every day. Yeah. And so when you're doing like sometimes you forget like what's reportable and what's off the record. Like what's supposed to be shared in the public domain and what's not. And we're all like really good friends. And so we sit around, we talk in commercial breaks. It's like, what are you doing this weekend? What are you doing? What have you been up to? Oh, the book, your book's coming up, blah, blah, blah. And apparently, Jenna Bush Hager, who's, she's a friend, she lives over in Greenwich. And I tried to get her to come to Westport, and she said, it's too far. And I was like, screw you. And she, by the way, I hope no one's like tweeting or doing it. Like keep this in the safe space. And so JBH apparently, a couple weeks ago, because we're doing this, The Devil Wears Prada 2 is coming out. I never saw the first one, but apparently people love the movie and it's gonna be, it's a cult classic, and anyway. And so she was like, oh yeah, I've got a cameo in this movie, I'm doing this thing, blah, blah, blah. And we're talking about it. Like we're just going, I'm like, oh, what's your scene? I was like, is there like a love scene? And she's like, shut up. It is not a love scene, by the way. And so we're talking about it. And I swore that there was something in Pop Start about it. And apparently it wasn't in Pop Start. Carson was just talking about it. So anyway, this morning, we're doing some Devil Wears Prada 2 story. And I'm like, hey, you know the movie's gonna be great because JBH is in the movie. And Savannah, God bless her, I've worked with her for so long now, she shot me the same look my wife shoots me when I've done or said something really stupid. And she shoots me the eyes, and as soon as she shot me the look, I was like, oh, shit. And JBH is like, I don't think people are supposed to know that. I was like, no, it's common knowledge. And then as I said it, I'm looking around, and it became glaringly obvious. It was not common knowledge. And so, 30 minutes later.
Well, if that's the worst blunder.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. And I apologized profusely. And then lo and behold, like 20 minutes later, like People magazine put out something, and somebody else puts out something. And then I felt like I felt terrible. But I apologized, and everyone assured me that was not that bad.
Well, you mentioned Savannah just now, and kind of a little bit of the elephant in the room here.
Yeah.
Is, we were glad that Savannah came back
Yes.
Monday. Can you talk a little bit about that time, the last couple of months, and how that's affected you as well as the whole team you work with?
Surreal. The whole thing was and continues to be completely surreal. And I think, you know, one of the things that a lot of folks don't know is, you know, Nancy, every time she would come to visit Savannah, she would come by the show. And I was out in Arizona last year for a charity thing, and because Nancy becomes such a part of the show, yeah, I went to Nancy's house and I took her one of the candles that I'd made, and we sat and we visited and had tea, and she was just a very special person. Not just because she was Savannah's mom. She was a woman of deep faith, and all she did was go to church and play mahjong. That was it. That was it.
Yeah.
And so when I got that call from one of our bosses and said, hey, you know, something's going to come out in a couple hours. I just want to give you a heads up about Savannah's mom. I was like, oh God, what happened to Nancy? Because she'd had some health issues, so I just assumed that she'd slipped away, and he proceeded to sort of explain what was happening at the time. And it was hard. I couldn't go back to sleep. We just couldn't get our head around it. And, you know, then Jim, it was one of those things for several days, even at a place like ours. I mean, we've, you know, God bless, I mean, we've seen and heard just about everything over 75 years. We've covered just about everything, but nothing like this. There's no playbook. We're all very close to the story too. And so it was one of those things where we had to navigate. We had to navigate reporting the story, but we also had to balance that with our friend, Savannah. And what a lot of folks don't know about Savannah Guthrie is, you know, you guys ran that clip, and you know, when my older brother died, I got a call in my dressing room about 6:30 one morning, and our dressing rooms right next to each other, and he'd been sick, and we knew what was coming. First knock on the door, Savannah Guthrie came in, wanted to pray with me before I went down to South Carolina. When Chanel Jones, another colleague of ours whose husband died from brain cancer last year. She's like the big sister I never had, and one of the first visitors at the hospital when he got his diagnosis, Savannah Guthrie. And so over the last few years, she's sort of become this, she's like the mother hen, you know, like she's that person who's always been there when we're in our darkest moments. And so for her to have this happen to her mom, it was a rough time. And it was also, and this is something we didn't fully appreciate until a few days in. Most of our staff is very young because they're cheap. And cheaper. And a lot of our staff, they'd never experienced anything like this. Yeah. And so there was this newsroom trauma that we were all kind of sort of having to navigate for the first week or so. And I remember, by the way, there was also a period of time where it wasn't clear that she was going to come back, which also added to sort of the angst and the anxiety. And when she came back a few weeks ago, she wanted to come back and thank the staff and thank the team that had been so prayerful and so supportive. And she and I got to spend some time together in her dressing room before she went down and addressed the team. And she was obviously still heartbroken, But she said it then, and she said it since before in a different way. But she's like, I had to come back. I had to come back for myself, and I had to come back for my kids, so they could see this is how you deal with grief. This is how you deal with sorrow. You put one foot in front of the other. You get up every morning. Like this is how you deal with the valleys. And so, yeah, no, it's been hard. But I will tell you, when she came back on Monday, it was just our morning rituals. Or again, because we have to keep a certain schedule, we kind of do the same thing at the same time every morning. And so I go into makeup, and she's sitting right there, and we were able to pick up right where we left off to a certain extent. And
I watched that Monday morning, and it felt that way.
Good.
It was amazing. Thank you for that story. In just a couple of minutes, we're going to open mic and give all of you a chance to step over here. And
that's a terrible idea.
Literally, I have dozens of questions that we aren't going to get to tonight. But while some of you
can we screen the questions before they go up there? Because some of these people I know.
That's a Wiseman tradition that it's whatever.
Great.
While some people are moving over here, I'm going to do a little lightning round of.
Okay, I'll keep them fast.
Okay, so.
Lee, am I screwing this up? Am I okay? Okay, all right.
Worst interview you ever had? Ever conducted? Not the person, but just total mess up.
I will. Oh God, I'm gonna get in trouble. Because he's not a bad interview. He's just Robert De Niro. I love the guy. He's an amazing actor. He just, and I've said to him before when he's been on, I was like, why do you do this? Like, why do you come on the show? Like, you don't want to be here. It's frustrating because before the camera goes on, he's so engaging. He's like, and then all of a sudden a little red light goes on. It's like, Bob, tell me about the movie. Oh, it's good. It's good. The cast, it's an amazing cast. Scorsese. No, Martin's good. I like working with him.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Toughest interview you ever had to arrange, and was it worth it?
My dad. I wrote a book on my dad, so I had to interview him, and he was just, he was my dad, and so it was. Oh, look at you. My God, man. Well done.
As soon as I take these little yellow things out here, I will return this book to the library, and you are all welcome to borrow it. I can tell not enough of you have by the stamps of the return set.
That's a problem.
This is a great book.
You know why? Because they bought the book. That's what it was.
So that's how you bought that.
No, during COVID, I wrote a book, and I interviewed my dad in my basement for hours on end, and that was, he was not compliant.
Kind of the most surprising interview, exceeded your expectations. You kind of thought, so I got to do this, and then, wow, glad I did.
Oh, that's a really good question. Jim, we may have wasted your talents. Surprising interview. I think maybe for me, maybe Michael Jordan, only because he was a childhood idol, and I had heard that he could be a little prickly. And then all of a sudden, when we sat down and started talking, it was like, oh, he's normal. That was a surprise. I'm frequently surprised, though. I've got this podcast that I do now, and today we did 2 interviews for the podcast. We did Jason Tatum and Anthony Davis, 2 NBA players, and I was pleasantly surprised by both of them in different ways. But I do think that's one of the things that, for me at least, I like to be surprised. Because one of the things that I find is I interview a lot of people on a regular basis who are interviewed a lot. Musicians, actors, producers, directors, writers, people who've been asked everything. And so when you interview someone who's been asked everything, it's hard to break through. And that's the challenge. The challenge is being able to get someone to tell you something that they haven't shared before, or maybe say it in a different way, and so, like, today we were, Jason Tatum plays for the Celtics, NBA champion, all-star 6 times, blah, blah, blah. And he's very private about his girlfriend, which, I listened to her music and I was very intrigued by that. And you never, in an interview, like, you don't want to start with whatever's gonna be the most contentious. You don't start with that. You start with the easy stuff. And then at some point, when they've let their guard down a bit, that's when you go. And so we'd gotten to the end, and he'd sort of let his guard down a little bit, and I was like, hey, just, before we go, let's talk about love. And he was like, why don't you talk about love? And then he takes like a big gulp of his water. I was like, no. Like, let's talk about what your life looks like after basketball. You're a father now. Do you ever see yourself being a husband? I shot my shot. And I missed. But I shot my shot. And so that's.
Well, I'll shoot my last shot here.
Okay.
Do you really like all that food you have to eat on the Today Show?
Jim Marpe, it is the best part of the job. And that's not a joke, because we've got a food styling team. And I didn't even know that this thing existed until I showed up. And all of a sudden, these chefs would come on, and you see them, and then you realize, after a couple segments, they don't cook the food themselves. Like, we have a team of people that at like 5:30 in the morning, they're like grilling ribeyes and making like these elaborate dishes, and everything they make is next level. Like, they're professionals. They're like the best of the best. And so sometimes what you don't see is, like, during a commercial break, usually the big break I get is between 7:24 and 7:30. That's the affiliate break. I'll go back to the kitchen and I graze. Because they're preparing the food for later in the show. Like this morning, we did an entire segment on like the best ways to make bacon. So you go back there at 7:30. This is not an exaggeration. It's like a 6 by 6 foot tray of bacon. And I go back, I'm like, oh, this is good. What I don't like, sometimes they bring on these vegan chefs or the and I've asked them to, because no offense, like, if you don't, whatever, but I don't like that crap. But like the meat, oh my God, and by the way, I look in the rundown, I can tell you right now, it's the first thing that I look at in the rundown. I'm gonna tell you right now on the show tomorrow. So tomorrow in the show, there's only one food segment. On a good day, we get 2 food segments. Tomorrow, there's a woman named Maggie Baird who's gonna be on at roughly 8:51. She's doing spring pasta and vegetables. That's gonna be good.
Okay.
It's gonna be
Pasta
good.
Primavera.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
John, do we have anybody lined up over there?
Who's going to be first? It's too hard to get over there. Oh, no, it's not. We have to have you over
I
here.
know this guy. You can't let him ask a question.
We have to hear you on the microphone.
All right.
You can all hear me because I'll talk loud enough. I have a loud voice. Fred, what's your morning like? You go on early. Where do you get your news? You wake up in the morning to the office. What's your news cycle?
3:45, I'm up, and I'm usually in the car by 4:15. Although in the summer I can sleep in a little bit when we have the concerts, because there's nothing, 8:30 on, it's just music, so there's no reading in. So there's a call, depending on the morning. There's usually a call at about 4:30 that I'll hop on with the senior producing team, the producers there in the newsroom. That takes 5-10 minutes if there are any changes. We go over that. I 3 things every morning. NBC News, of course, NBCnews.com. I start there. New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal. I graze the headlines, Unless it's a story that we're leading with or the second story, then I'll go farther in depth. But that's the morning diet. It is interesting though, because I'm a big Apple News guy. I don't like to have the algorithm feed me what it thinks I like. I like to actually go and seek it out. But I end up also reading some rather obscure things too every morning. But I go out of my way to find them because I think that sort of helps me sort of, stay sharp.
All right, we have somebody at the microphone.
Hi. Hi, Jim. Hi, Craig. So,
what's your name?
My name's Kathy. I've actually done a surprise segment with you by mistake in Terrain one day.
Oh.
I had people calling me from all over the country.
Oh, the Terrain thing, when I pretended to work there.
That was me.
Yes!
You told me to buy something for $400.
I did. Sorry.
So here's my question. You're part of our community, and we all think we know you, because I've been watching the Today Show for over 30 years. And since we're in a safe space, I'm asking you to be honest. What do you want us to do when we see you? I've seen you all over the place, and I try not to say hello
Well, that's rude.
I don't want to infringe on your personal time, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels this way.
That's a really good question. That's actually a really good question. No, listen, I mean, if we're being honest, if I'm in Terrain by myself, yeah, let's talk for 2 or 3 minutes and catch up and talk about the show. And if my kids are with me, I don't like that because first of all, they already think I'm a dork. And they're at that age where I just embarrass them generally. But, my wife and I knew what we signed up for. My kids didn't sign up to be talked to or, have a picture. So if it's just me, let's chop it up and chit chat. I will say one of the things that is a pet peeve, and it doesn't happen as much now as it used to when I did cable news. What no one enjoys, especially these days, if you're a journalist, I don't necessarily need you to come up and talk to me about the president. Or something that he said or tweeted, because I'm at brunch. And I don't think we need to because it's, that's it.
Yeah.
Or the selectmen. If you got a complaint, about the selectmen, I don't need to hear that. Jim's a good guy.
No, I'm not a fan.
Kevin's a good guy. I don't know if Kevin's here.
Go ahead.
Hi, Craig. My name's Neil. I was actually a sponsor at Verso Fest. I think I saw your wife over there with Wycliffe.
We were jamming.
Yes, you were jamming. Okay. So.
Although the way you sort of said that made it seem like I was with my wife. Wycliffe was here, and we were.
Well, he was.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah. So I have a friend and colleague, also anchor at a other network who has to be up early, actually 6 a.m. In Midtown also. And I'm just curious, it's 8 p.m. now. What is your routine and what's your routine for having to actually do that?
If I do anything at night, I take a nap. And so I napped today. I took about a almost 90-minute nap. Otherwise, I don't nap because it screws with my sleep at night. But I'll be fine tonight. I'll go to sleep. This is going to sound weird to you, but I sort of time it out because if I get 6.5 hours, I'm fine. Anything less than that, it sort of messes with me. So
what time do you have to leave your house?
3:45.
Okay.
3:40. Although tomorrow I'll sleep in, because tomorrow is my Friday. I'm not working this Friday. Kids have spring break next week, so I took the week off. And so in my mind, I've already checked out. And so if you see me on the show tomorrow, you'll be like, wow, he really seems off his game, because I'm dialing it in. I'll sleep until 4.
You mentioned that you weren't real comfortable being interviewed about the president. I can relate to that. How does the show decide what news it's going to use as part of its rundown? and what does it leave to the news?
That's a great question. What's your name, sir?
John,
John, you've got a great voice. Did you do radio at some point?
not guilty.
Okay. That's a great voice. How do we decide what we're going to lead with, what's going to make the show? It is, it's a nonstop process, quite frankly. So one of the reasons that I think that the Today Show has been as successful as it's been for 75 years is the show itself it's an accurate reflection of who we are. We're not all political. We're not all just about food. We're into politics, music, TV shows, movies, all of those things. And so every morning, the show gives you all of those things. The challenge becomes how much broccoli do we give you, and how much ice cream do we give you? And as you might imagine, we do a great deal of research. We know what works. We know what people like. We know what people don't like. We know the times at which people like certain things. If you ever watch the show very closely, you'll notice if we do food, if we do music, it's always after 8:30. If we're doing politics, it's always between 7 and 7:15 or 8 and 8:10. If we're doing a story about some sort of consumer issue or a trend, those stories are typically at 7:42 or 8:12. There's a very precise science to what we do. What we have to do is tell people what's happened in the world overnight. So between the 7 and 7:15, it's the war with Iran. It's whatever's come out of the White House overnight or the previous evening. It's right now, obviously, the Artemis II mission is top of mind for a lot of folks. That's been in the first 10, 12 minutes for the last week or two. March Madness, even though it's not on our network, that's something that we always like to end most of our half hours with something either light, something that's sports related, something that's pop culture related, and it's by design. It's because the reality is, if you want to watch and listen to politics, you're watching Morning Joe. If you want to find out how the futures are looking, or what oil's doing overnight, you're watching CNBC. We know our audience pretty well, and our audience has evolved. Our audience is changed, and so we have adapted. One of the things I love about the show, and granted, not to beat our own chest, but every morning, it's still the biggest game in town. We're still in more than 3 million households every single morning, even as broadcast has declined and streaming has taken, it's still the biggest game in town. What the smart people at 30 Rock have done is that they figured out how to take the brand that is today and expand it. Like if you're in your car, you can listen to us on Sirius XM channel 108. You can stream us on YouTube. We've got podcasts now. Like they've really taken the brand and they've made it almost inescapable, which has pros and cons.
That's great, and that.
There's one.
Oh, we got another question.
Is he the last one?
Dick Cole.
I don't know if I'm the last question or anything. I've been in radio, but Craig, you've done a wonderful job tonight. It really has been a pleasure to listen to your story. What piece of advice would you give a high school student who wants to get into today's media, given the fact that AI is playing such a big role? How do you get them to think the right way about themselves in order to get into media?
That's a good question. Listen, AI, that's a separate library talk, but I do think that it's going to, I honestly think, and maybe I'm being Pollyanna about it, but I think we're going to get to a point where it becomes so difficult for us to discern what's real and what's not, that shows like ours, institutions like ours, people are going to trust them even more than they did 20 years ago. because it's going to get so confusing. That may be wishful thinking, but we'll see. In terms of the advice, I didn't study journalism. I took a couple journalism classes. I studied government. And I spent about three months working on Capitol Hill, and that's all it took to realize I didn't want to be part of government. No offense. Yeah, no offense.
None taken.
But the advice I always give high school students, just about everything now you can learn, whether it's AI or phones or MasterClass, YouTube, whatever. Like, you can learn most skills. What you cannot learn, and what really can't be taught, is legitimate intellectual curiosity. And for me, at a young age, and I didn't realize it at the time, but my mother was very deliberate. And I mentioned this earlier. She first in the family to go to college, grew up in the projects, grew up surrounded by some abuse, and didn't have the best examples. But what she did have early on, she had books. And so she read a lot. And she watched good TV. And when she had children, she decided that she was going to expose her kids to all of the things that she was never exposed to. So as a result, I took magic classes. I played the violin. I participated in oratorical contests at a young age. And for those of you who don't know what those are, they don't help you with the opposite sex. But she did lots of things at an early age that, I remember vividly. Like, I'm like, Mom, what? Like, why? This is so dumb, and this is, and she had a plan. And what she did was she exposed me to all these different things and people and activities, and I developed an appreciation for those things. And so as I got older, I was into just a lot of weird stuff. Just weird stuff. Whether music or movies or shows. I was a news junkie. I watched a lot of news. I was an intern in a local TV newsroom at 15 years old, and I'd like to write. And so I just developed this curiosity, Jim, about a lot of different things. And a good journalist is a good generalist. I don't know a whole lot about a lot of things, but I know a little bit about a lot of different things. Yes. And it was just one of those things that my mother cultivated, and I just would advise any young person to get into weird stuff. And oh, they turned the lights off on this poor young lady. Well, hang on, you're the youngest person. It's late. You have a question? Just ask your question. Oh, no, now they turn the lights back on. There we go.
I'm graduating from Syracuse University next
Oh, yes.
And my question was what was your first job getting out of college and pursuing in the field that you want to do? Because I know what I want to do for the future, but what was it like getting your first job?
What do you want to do?
I want to be a producer in some sort of...
Smart lady. Lady. Producers have a far longer lifespan than guys like me.
Yeah.
First job, I took a job as a photographer right out of college. I graduated on my birthday. It was May 20th, 2001. I went backpacking through Europe. Wow. It was supposed to be 2 weeks. I ran out of money after 10 days. We had to come back early. And I started my job June 8th. And I was one of those guys that held the cameras, shot the video. Back then, before you were born, we shot on this thing called tape.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was beta tape. I shot on beta, then we moved to DVC Pro. And I shot video, and then I became a producer. I was a local news producer, and I was not very good at either one of those jobs. But while I was doing those jobs, I would see the reporters, and I was like, oh, man. I would love to tell stories. Like, this is great. Like, and every day it's a different story, and every day, like, I knew I couldn't work in an office because I've got undiagnosed like ADHD, and so I knew I needed to be out in the field.
Yeah.
And so finally, one day, there's a guy named Jeff Hoffman who's become a dear friend. He was the station manager at the time. And he sent out a memo, we had a big meeting, and he informed the staff that we were moving in a different direction. You're too young to understand what that means. That means people were getting fired.
Yeah.
And so like, they fired the guy who was doing like the morning show. He was like this morning news reporter, and they fired the guy because I guess he was too expensive. And he was like, you know, you've talked about being a reporter, here's your shot. And so I took the skills from being a photographer, and I knew how to operate the live truck at the time, this microwave truck. I've gotten most of the videos taken down off YouTube, but there are a couple still left. It was called Craig Cam. And I would take the camera out at 4 o'clock in the morning, lock it down, run the cable from the microwave truck to the camera, throw the satellite dish up on top of the truck, beam it back, and I was a one-man band, like live show in the morning. And I did that for like a year and a half. It was terrible. But it was so bad that the audience sort of felt for me. Like people would tune in. They were like, oh my God, what are they gonna make Craig do this morning? Like it was, and there'd be some times where like the camera, it wouldn't be locked down tightly, so it would tilt up on live TV, and people loved it. It was. But what it also did, we were on the air for 2.5 hours every morning in Columbia, South Carolina. And when you're on the air for 2.5 hours, it's not gonna all be good. And so I was like filler. I filled time. And as a result, I learned how to riff and how to speak extemporaneously about whatever was happening. And some mornings it was light, some mornings it was rising gas prices. And then one morning, there was a really popular restaurant. It was called Rockaway's Cafe, and it caught fire, and it burned down, and I was the only guy out there. And I spent 2 hours talking about how this beloved landmark was burning to the ground behind me. And that was it. And then after that, my boss was like, oh, wow, he can do news. and so after that, I caught a break, and then I was anchoring the evening news in Columbia, South Carolina, until I was 27 years old. And then I'll leave you with this. There was a buddy of mine who was in the State House of Representatives at the time, and he was running a nonprofit, and he was like, I'm leaving the nonprofit because I want to go work on this political campaign, and can you do me a favor? Can you interview this guy live on the 6 o'clock news? Because I think he's going to be somebody. And he was a good friend, still is, a guy named Anton Gunn. And I was like, yeah, well, send me this stuff. And I'd heard a little bit about the guy, and I called him up. I was like, and at that point, I'm anchoring the 6 and 11 o'clock news. And I call him up, and I'm like, dude, I know he's getting a lot of attention. This is Columbia, South Carolina, too. But this Barack Obama guy, I heard his middle name's Hussein. My boss, she's like, well, we can do it, but I don't know. This might be risky for you. I don't know. And so I interviewed, at that point, Senator Obama, live on the 6 o'clock news. A few months after that, I had a job interview in Washington, D.C., and I met a guy in the cafeteria named Tim Russert. And that's kind of how it started. You'll have to look up some of those names, but that's kind of how it started.
Our stage manager, who's wonderful, her head's about to explode because we're running over, but we'll take one last question and we'll kind of wrap up.
And then I'll go to bed.
Yeah, I also have to
the cut line
respect
under that discussion is right place, right time, right?
Yeah.
Would you tell Savannah that Westport is with her?
I have.
Hi, Craig. This is more of a thank you as we wrap it up. I'm an elementary school teacher. I watch the Today Show every morning. Part of my routine is I'm getting my family ready for school.
Thank you.
I love the mix of news and Pop Start and your morning boost. But one of the most impactful segments that you did that stuck with me was when you did swimming lessons. I believe it was with your brother.
Wow, you do watch.
I do. And I just really respected how you put yourself out there to spotlight such an important safety and life skill for children, adults, and to put yourself out there for that. So thank you, and
thank you.
Thank you for all you do for the show and for all of us that watch every morning.
Thank you. That's very kind. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the words out of my mouth so we can,
Thank you, Jim.
but believe me, to read more and learn more about what makes Craig Melvin tick, Pops, the learning to be a son and a father. We didn't get a chance at all to talk about fatherhood and parenthood and that whole role. This is an easy read, and it'll, every one of you, certainly every man who reads this will recognize a part of themselves in this, too.
Jim.
In
Thanks
the
for doing this
meantime,
tonight. Thank
Craig, thank you. You do have to get to bed. We don't want you falling asleep tomorrow morning. Thank you on behalf of us for one wonderful interview. Thank you.